Crossroads Community Church. We are so glad that you decided to check us out. You are invited to visit us in person at 9 or 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings. If you would like to partner with us in our mission to connect others with God, you can visit us on our website at www.crossroads.cc and click on the online giving tab. We hope you enjoy this sermon from our most recent service.
So December 19th, my husband and I had fallen asleep on the couch in our living room in our apartment in downtown Newport News, and we had heard a noise that startled us both. An intruder had broken into our back window of our apartment and come down the hallway. And after that, my husband jumped up from the couch to meet the intruder. And at that point, a gun was fired, and he ran out our front door. He hit it about 3 or 4 times before he fell through it. I was sitting there, screaming for him to leave and not to shoot me. And they took my husband to the hospital where he passed away. And I've had just a whole bunch of people that have rallied to my side, a great support network that have helped with the memorial and moving my things out of our apartment. And I've been staying with friends for the time being. And then this project is our house that we bought in June 2016, and hopefully will be the thing that we use to memorialize my husband in some way. We bought it in June, and we were given the permits the Friday before he passed, so that we were able to start work on this project.
These are things that you just don't expect to happen to, the close friends like this.
Family, friends, neighbors, still at a loss for words. Tuesday morning, police finding this man, 51-year-old Eduardo Amezquo, shot inside his home.
To get this news in the morning was kind of a shock. It seems surreal.
Tim Wall says he and Amezquo were good friends, both members of Next Level Church in Yorktown. Wall just having dinner with Ed and his wife Amber Sunday night, the two even texting back and forth the next day.
He loved the children and he loved the people in the church.
Wall and others close with the family believe the suspect shot Amezquo during a home invasion.
And they've lived here for several years, and there's not ever been an issue, in this area. And so it's just it's one of those things that you're in shock.
Wednesday afternoon, Wall and other Next Level Church members paying for a moving truck and storage unit to move several of the family's belongings out the home. The church even creating a PayPal account to help Ed's family and his wife Amber with funeral costs. Wall says there are still plenty of unanswered questions, but right now they're doing what they can to help this family move forward.
The Next Level Church family has surrounded her with love and taking care of her.
Police are not saying if this was a home invasion or not, and as far as a suspect, police have not made any arrests at this time. In Newport News, Nico Clemens, 13 News Now.
Well, good morning, Crossroads. This is a little bit of a different service, but we are in a series we're calling Address the Mess, and we've been talking about mess. We've been talking about the mess that we have in our lives. Sometimes it's a financial mess, sometimes it's a family mess, or a parenting mess, or a professional mess, or something's going on in our life that's a mess, and we want to address those things. We want to find hope in Jesus Christ. We want to find answers and solutions, and so we've been talking through that. And some of the messes that we have in our life, we cause them, right? But some are uninvited. They just happen. And so my friend Amber here, that's the story of her life recently. And so I wanted to have her here to tell her story of what has happened in her life this year. But since they don't probably know you, a few people may know you, but why don't you tell them about yourself so they get to know you a little bit?
I just want to say thanks for letting me be here today. I love the church as a whole, and it's always nice to come and share and speak. And this story has been huge in my life and impactful, and I hope you get to hear a few things that just kind of sink into your heart. My name is Amber Mesqua. I am the children's director at Next Level Church. And my life, probably similar to all of yours, has been pretty perfect. I was raised by a mom and dad who were together, and a beautiful home with my brother and I, and he was a pastor of a church and was a pastor for my whole entire life. And everything was great. I felt called to ministry, went to seminary, left seminary, came to Virginia to pursue some education at Regent University, and did all the things. Met my husband, Ed, and my life was never the same. I had never dated in high school or college, so he was my first and only. He was everything to me, and we had what I think is the perfect life. We just had each other in church and family, and we did all the things that we did together. In fact, one of the things that Ed and I always said was kind of like our family motto was, you love hard and you love fast because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And I never knew how true that was going to be. I just never thought. I thought that in terms of people moving and seasons of life changing, but never thought literally life is short.
Yeah. And so all of that changed on the 20th of December for you. And I know it's a tough story to tell, but could you tell us what happened December 20th?
Yeah, so you heard a little bit in the news clip. I kind of want to just let you know, like, life was so mundane on Monday. Monday was like every other day. You wake up, you get dressed, you go to work. It was the 19th of December. We had 5 days really before Christmas. My parents were coming in 3 days to celebrate with us, Christmas and all the things. And everything was just normal. I went to work, he went to work. We came home around the same time as always. To do the things that we always did. His son Chris and his wife Janelle were coming over to do some things with us, and we ordered Chinese food and did the norm for us on a Monday, relaxing, sitting on the couch. And so normal that I was doing laundry, and like a good wife, I hate folding laundry. Folding laundry is the pits. And so I put all the laundry on the bed, and I was hoping that he would help me with that later. But lucky for him, he fell asleep on the couch around 10 o'clock. Chris and Janelle left at 10:30. And instead of me deciding, well, let's wake him up and do the laundry, I just decided, you know what, who cares? It's so minuscule, it doesn't matter. And we'll just kind of hang out here in the living room, and we fell asleep. And around 1:30, I heard a loud noise that I thought was probably my cat knocking something over. And it ended up being somebody in my house. And I heard another loud noise. And before I could really figure out what was going on, I saw a shadow that had walked to the side and met my husband in the corner, and a shot fired. And in those moments, you think you're going to fight, but you tend to flee. And I remember singing back into my chair and just saying, don't shoot me. And then that fight response came and just was yelling for him to get out of my house, and he did. He left through the front doors in the front of our house. And I was left kind of calling 911, holding my husband, just surreal what was next to happen. And it was so, I think the thought that I've processed the most is I was waiting for a few days to receive a Savior who was going to be born to us. And I had a man in my house who was in desperate need of one. And I was left thinking, I'm so thankful I have one.
I've sat in meetings with you, Amber, and then just now, as you've shared this story, do you put yourself in her place? Can you put yourself in her place for a minute and just think, I've heard her tell that story so graciously and courageously, and I honestly think if I were sitting where you were, I would be like, I'd be in a cave somewhere eating bugs, or I would be a mess. Like, I think it would be the end of me. And how have you kept going to the point where you can sit here and we're not that far away from December. It hasn't been that far. And
Right.
how do you keep going? How do you do this?
So for me, an amazing thing happened that night. The police officer had asked me to go sit in the car and pray for your husband. And I remember distinctly saying to him, why? For what reason? It was like I had already known what was going to happen, and I was already processing it. And I remember hearing a verse that just kind of was whispered, and then it just kept growing and growing to where when I was sitting in the car, I just started uttering it. And it was from the book of Job, which I think is an amazing book because it's like the oldest book in the Bible. And I've thought a little bit about that. Like the oldest book of the Bible, there's this scripture verse, and it was designated at a time for me in this present time to kind of hold on to. And it said, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And I just kept saying it over and over and over again. And all of a sudden I realized I have no control in this. I can't fix this. I can't solve this. I can't make heads or tails of it. I literally just have to get to a point where I can say, he gets to decide. He gets to decide all of it. Every moment from here on, he gets to decide, and he's already making decisions right now in the life of my husband, and I just have to yield. And the only thing that I had to do was worship him. And it sounds very cliche and it's very flippant at this point, but like, I just had to know that I could, no matter what the outcome was, say, I'm going to bless your name, that you still are God and you're still good to me. And that scripture has been a huge, like just something to hold on to. When I want to start controlling things and I want to start, trying to figure things out and what's it going to look like, and building this house and I'm working and I'm doing all these things in the trial, and it's just like, no, I don't get to. And then the other verse that I think has just really been an anchor for me and a hope is Romans 8:28. It says, all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. And we say that so easily. It's a verse we all memorize. We all know it. But the part that gets me is the all things. We think the all things are the good things, that all the good things work out for good, not all the bad things. And all the things work. The wasted things, the things that we think are just throwaway, the things that we think don't matter or aren't important or aren't good or aren't right, they actually work out too for good. And so that's just been something I've been trying to hold on to as well.
I know that there's another person in this story, and it's the man who came into your home and killed your husband, who was arrested, who's on trial, and there's probably a whole gamut of emotions that you've felt over the course of the last few months. Despair, maybe some hope, maybe some frustration, but anger's got to be one of them. I mean, there has to be anger. I mean, are you angry at this man that came into your home and killed your husband?
So anger is not one of those emotions that I've actually felt. I've had a lot of friends who knew Ed and I very well, and it just said, I'm just angry. I'm angry that he's gone. I'm angry for you. I'm angry, and I've stopped and paused because I feel like I'm more challenged instead of being angry, but to love. And that's a harder thing for me to do in general. It doesn't come natural. It's easier for me to be angry, but in this moment, I think about his mess. And if we're talking about messes, this mess came into my life totally interrupted, not welcome, didn't know it was going to happen. But for him, I think, well, what was his life like? What messes did he have? What was he running from? What did it look like? And for me to judge so strongly that he shouldn't have been or shouldn't have done or how he acted or how he responded just doesn't seem fair. When the Bible talks about if you have anger in your heart or you are angry towards someone, it's no different than murder. And so I try really hard to hold myself in a place of like not judging, not looking down, but just trying to say, you know what, I've been angry before, I've murdered before, like in my heart. I think about him and his life and his family. And Jesus was on this earth for such a small time, and right before he goes and leaves, these disciples are following him, and he says to them, this commandment I leave you, that you would love as I have loved. And I'm challenged by that. We sit in services. I sit in a church where I hear great messages about loving others, and I go to a group and I hear people struggling with love, and I'm like, I have to love a murderer. Mm-hmm. And I'm praying that God begins to shift the have to the get to, and I don't know what it looks like. And to say that I understand what it means to love a murderer, I don't know what that looks like. But I do want to choose to love.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Well, one of the questions that I think comes out in moments like this is the question, why do bad things happen to good people? I've heard that question a bazillion times in my life. I mean, you shared your story in the beginning. Oh, we go to church, we're in group, I'm on staff, all these kinds of things. Why do bad things happen to good people?
Well, I'm going to let you take that one, Pastor, and tell me, why do bad things happen to good people?
I'm supposed to be the interviewer here, and that's not fair. Oh, man. It's dangerous to ask a question to a pastor. I mean, really. But, I think probably first, you got to have to step back when somebody asks you that question, because probably wouldn't ask you that question unless there was something going on in their life that hurt. Some kind of hurt, some kind of disappointment, some kind of tragedy that they would say, why do bad things happen to good people? And they're thinking about themselves at that moment. I'm a good person, and why has this bad thing happened in my life? And so you have to be careful when someone asks that question. That's just telling you guys that. You have to be careful because the easy thing to do is just to give quick answers. Like, I remember my brother was in a car accident, and they called us all in to say our goodbyes to him. And so we all got to MCV as quick as we could to say goodbye to him. And thankfully he lived, but there was that 24 hours where we didn't know what was going to happen. He had a skull fracture, but life still went on, and we still had to eat food. We still had to go get gas in our car. We still had to go to the grocery store, and people would see us, and they'd know what was going on. They'd see me, and they'd know what was going on in my family with my brother, and they would say these short little things like, God's got this, or just trust him, or there's a purpose in this. And you're just like, shut up. Like you want to hit him across the head. Like, don't give me these little canned answers. That's not helping the situation. But I think you have to be careful when you answer the question. But second, it's a flawed question, really. I mean, it's just a flawed question. You're saying that if you're good and if you behave, that only good things will happen to you. But if you're bad or you do something wrong, that there's going to be some punishment in that, and you're going to suffer bad things. So you look at somebody going through something difficult, and you're like, well, they must have done something really bad. Well, Jesus taught us that wasn't the way that it went anyway. Or, wow, their life is perfect. They must really do good things in their life. They behave well. And so it really is a flawed question, because when you read, just pick this up someday, and read about the people of faith who suffered greatly. I mean, big time. Mm-hmm. Jesus, who I think all of us would say was pretty good, suffered, didn't he? And so I probably suffered more than anybody. And so I think we have to realize that we're going to suffer. Paul suffered. Here's a man that wrote most of the New Testament, who started churches, who saw people get saved all the time, and he would show his suffering by his scars. Like he would roll up his sleeve and say, look at this one. Like, this one's when I got beaten. This is when I shipwrecked. Look at my stomach, like it's sunken in because I'm starving. And that doesn't even show you what's really going on in the inside, the scars on the inside. And he says, you think these scars prove that God doesn't love me. I think they prove that God does love me. Because you can't ever, if you've been in a fight, you're going to have a scar. And if you've been in a fight, you're going to have scars, and the scars are going to show that God carried you through whatever you're going through. Yeah. And so I think probably the answer then is that we all suffer. Mm-hmm. We all suffer. So why not me? Right. So Does that maybe help? Then maybe can you get some context of why maybe why this bad thing happened to you in that context?
I think exactly what you said, in the sense that, why not me? I think we feel in this country, great country that we live in, that we're exempt from tragedy or suffering or hardship, or that anything bad would happen to us. We're good people, right? We're in Yorktown, Virginia. We're in God's country. We're good. No, we are good. But at the same time, I think if we were honest, if we just took down all of the facade that we put on a Sunday morning and just were honest with ourselves, we would say that as we live and breathe and move across this country, there's a rumbling. It's inevitable. Suffering is 100% inevitable. It's coming. You've either experienced it in short, or you've experienced it a lot. It's going to come. If my husband didn't die, I'm just going to be honest, my parents are going to. If these things didn't happen, there would be something else. There'd be heartbreak. There'd be sorrow. There'd be sadness. It's just part of the broken, fallen world that we live in. To expect that we're not just doesn't seem fair. But to be able to live and breathe in those moments of suffering, it's happening. And I feel like the church, for me, is the place that is supposed to allow mess and suffering and brokenness in through its doors, because that's the purpose. Mm-hmm. And if we're not doing that, then we're not Christ to a broken and fallen world. And as soon as, I don't know, for me, I've thought a lot. As soon as birth happens, you're already dying. You're already starting to decay. It's inevitable. A tree, it grows, and as it's growing, it's starting to decay. This life that we live is just so full of suffering every moment. And so to embrace that and to be ready for it is just really what we're called to do, I think.
And in that suffering, there's the potential in suffering, if we'll let it happen, that God will draw close to us, if we'll allow it to happen. I think about a young lady that I've talked to recently that experienced a ton of verbal abuse growing up as a child, and so she would hide. And she told me how she would hide in the closet as a child to get away. And then as a teenager, she would hide in the closet to get away from that abuse. But it was in the closet where she began to hear God's voice. It was in the closet where she felt God's comfort. And she got to experience God in a close way that I may never experience. Or I told you the other day about my cousin who was deaf. She would spend the night at our home, and at 7 years old, and one night she goes to sleep, she can hear, and the next morning she wakes up and she's deaf at 7. And I look at her, and she hears the voice of God because everything else is blocked out. She hears the voice of God completely different than I ever did or have or will. And there's a sense of jealousy sometimes. I know that sounds really weird, but there's a sense of jealousy because people who experience suffering and tragedy, if they'll allow it, God will draw close to them in those moments, and they'll have a depth to their relationship with God that we may never, if we don't experience some kind of suffering like that we may never. So how has that happened in your life? Have you experienced God in a close way?
I think suffering produces brokenness. And in that brokenness, one of the things that I've thought about is when things are broken, they're exposed, and therefore then things can kind of come in and kind of wash and clean and work itself out. And for me, I look at my heart and it's broken and it's kind of being held together by this great, gracious God of ours. Yet at the same time, I just know that brokenness has allowed, that suffering has allowed for God to just kind of pour some love in there and to just work and heal and do. And if I never had gone through this, I still would have loved him. I still would have served him. I still would have done all the things. But now it just seems like there's more. There's a depth. And for me, brokenness is just the thing that God is just working in me all the time, through and through, that everything breaks.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down in my journal the other day that the ground breaks when we plant a seed, and a seed breaks when a tree grows or a crop grows, and the crop or the wheat that we take breaks when we make the bread. And then don't we, like when we're all together, we break bread. And that bread creates a feast. And I just think at times, like, how amazing it is that in the story in the Bible, Mary takes an alabaster jar and she breaks it open, not for herself, but to give him all the glory and all of the worship. And people even mocked her for it. Why are you doing that? Why? What a waste. But I don't think brokenness is ever wasted. I think it's what he calls us to.
Yeah. Let's talk to some people in the room that have experienced a season of tragedy or difficulty, where it's just like one day after the other, brokenness after brokenness after brokenness after brokenness after brokenness, and these moments when you just want to say, I can't do this anymore, God. Like, can I have a good day? Can you just throw me like a crumb? I need a crumb, I need something. I just need something. I think I'm going to quit. I think I'm going to quit. I mean, I talk to people occasionally that say, I'm going to quit. Like, I keep praying, I keep asking God to do these things, and it's just another day of brokenness and another day of brokenness. I'm sure you've had days where you've wanted to quit.
So real talk for a minute. Vulnerability 101 right here. So I have been taken really good care of, and this probably sounds very easy of what I'm talking about, but there is a moment of time when you wake up and you're awake, but your eyes aren't open. And in that moment, every morning, I ask myself, if I keep my eyes closed, can I will myself to not wake up? Those are those want to quit moments every morning. And I know that as soon as I open my eyes, life is there. And light is going to flood my eyes and the day will begin. So in those moments, I just really identify with those are the want to quit moments for me. And I roll over and I look outside my window in this bedroom, and when the light hits and the sun is out and the trees are out, and I think of all of the good, his goodness just hits me in the face. It's like there are birds sitting out on the little roof over the screen porch, and there are trees, and they're ever so blowing ever so gently through the wind, and I just have to stop and just remember how good his mercy is for me that day, that there's grace and there's love, and for me, or I guess the thing that I would leave people, if I could say 3 things that I know to be just things that I just draw from.
Yeah, let's finish. That'll be our last question. Let's finish that. Just like, what would you tell? What would you tell somebody sitting here today that's in a huge mess? What would you tell them? Just give them lay it out for them.
So I would say, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. And I would say, hold on and let go. And that sounds really crazy, but I'm going to try to be really fast because I got 13 seconds. Don't lose hope. Psalm 27:13 says, I would have despaired unless I had believed that I'd see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And it is true, when you want to despair, you can look and find hope, that there's hope, that there's a God who lives and breathes, and the holding on and letting go are those things. Hold on to what matters and let go of what doesn't. I can't change all the things in my life. I have to let it all go. I can't fix any of it. I can't make my house be built faster. I can't, raise my husband back to life. I can't do all these things. I have to let go of some of those things. But the things that I can hold on to are friends and family and church. And when you ask me what I would leave someone, I would say, where are you connected? Where are you putting down roots? Find a family, find a church, find a friend When you're low and you want to quit and you want to give up, find a friend, call someone, go to their house, invite yourself over, whatever it takes to just get connected. And I know I'm running over.
That's
Can
okay.
I share
Yep,
one thing?
please do.
Okay.
Yep.
So this verse, I just have to read it because it's out of the book of Lamentations, and I really never thought there was anything good in Lamentations. I really didn't. I mean, listen to the name of the book. It says this, this is for someone. I just know it is. This is what it says, and I'm going to read it pretty quick. It says, this is from the Message. I'll never forget the trouble, the utter lostness, the taste of ashes, the poison I've swallowed. I remember it all. Oh, how well I remember the feeling of hitting the bottom. And there's one other thing I remember. And remembering, I keep a grip on hope. God's loyal love couldn't have run out. His merciful love couldn't have dried up. They're created new every morning. How great your faithfulness. I'm sticking with God. I'll say it over and over. He's all I've got left. God proves to be good to the man who passionately waits and to the woman who diligently seeks. It's a good thing to quietly hope for help from God. It's a good thing when you're young to stick it out through the hard times. When life is heavy and hard to take, go off by yourself. Enter the silence, bow in prayer. Don't ask questions, wait for hope to appear. Don't run from trouble, take it full face. The worst is never the worst. Why? Because the master won't ever walk out and fail to return. He works severely, but he also works tenderly, and his stockpile of loyal love are immense. He takes no pleasure in making life hard and in throwing roadblocks our way.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah. I know that was not easy, and this is really the first time you've told this story in a public place, and we thank you. We thank you, and I hope that you've drawn some hope from this today. Can I pray for you? And then we want to just worship this incredible, loving God that you just read about in Lamentations. God, thank you for Amber, and Lord, even the mess. As hard as it is to say thank you for the mess, God, thank you for the mess. And God, I lift her to you in the days ahead. Thank you for her courage and her grace in this moment. God, thank you for a woman who leverages the hurt, disappointment. And God, we pray that you would be with her step by step, day by day, moment by moment. God, thank you for the church, the big church that has surrounded her and loved her. God, continue to do that in her life. God, I pray for her home that they're building. I pray, God, that you would do everything that needs to be done there. That we would all look back one day and say that only happened because of God and his love for us. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.